Aloha, Waikoloa, Janice here. Just wanted to give you a report on the board meeting tonight. The first unfinished business was about the Waikoloa Community Church. So if you're not familiar with the history of this, many years ago we entered a lease agreement with the Waikoloa Community Church on Paniolo Avenue across from the school. And basically they contracted to basically lease the land to the church for the amount of what dues is per year. So I believe the lease has been at around $700 a year, or I think it just correlates with the dues. So essentially they're paying only the dues to lease the property for the church. That lease is coming up in the next few years, I think. I'm not really sure on the exact year. Some members of the church came to the association meeting a month or so ago and let them know that they would like to possibly buy the property from the association, and that they'd like to start talks of negotiating a price for that. So nothing was done on this item because Roger, our manager, suggested that it be moved to executive session because they can't talk openly about negotiations and that sort of thing. It will be brought if they do decide to sell the land. Excuse me. Then we will, as members, have the ability to vote for that. So it's not that we won't know. We will totally be kept in the loop. It's just that when they're going through any sort of negotiation process, they have to be careful about what they say. So they're going to be discussing that in the executive meeting, is what my understanding is, executive session. My thoughts on that are just that that was really super nice of the association to give the church that deal many years ago. However, I don't think it's fair to the association. Every other church that I'm aware of pays a great deal to either purchase property or to lease property to have their church, and I don't think we should be, even though this church is totally beneficial to our community, and many of its members are great, active, participating members of our community and association, I don't think that they should be getting special treatment at a deficit for the the association's getting the bad end of that deal when that property is worth probably well over $1 million, and we could be leasing it for a significant amount of money. So I really believe that we need to be utilizing our assets to the advantage of the majority of the members, not to special interests within the village. So I am not a proponent of continuing in on a lease that we're not making fair market value on the property. I'm also not a proponent at this point in selling the property, because I think that when you have a valuable asset, as we do, sitting on Paniolo, that we should be using it to bring in regular revenue for the association. It's a valuable asset that we should be leveraging. So that's my opinion, even though that makes me sad for the church, because I think the church is a tremendous benefit to the community. I just think that the church needs to go through the proper channels, which it sounds like they're trying to do, to purchase the property. I just don't think from a financial standpoint for the association that that's a good choice. That's just my opinion. So next, they just appointed the members of the Nominations and Elections Committee. So they're going to start that process. So we are definitely in need of people to step up to run for the board who are interested in being active members of the board and learning about all these things and making good choices for our community. Next up was an item about the pool. So previously the board had approved the pool committee to do what's called design build, which basically means that you hire like an architectural firm to completely design the pool, and then you go out and you get bids on that design. Well, that doesn't happen. It's difficult to have that done. You're kind of put up fronting a lot of money and not knowing what the ultimate cost of that design would be. So what traditionally happens, particularly here on this island, is that people say, okay, I'd like to have a pool that's about this big with, and I'd like this and I'd like that, and then somebody designs it, and they give you a bid. So the pool committee is referring to that method as design assist or design negotiate, and that seems to be, I probably mentioned that we own an air conditioning company, and we do this a lot for people because we know what costs less. People will come to us and say, hey, can you tell me what can I put in here that's going to be the most efficient, and give me this what I want and this what I want. And because that's what we do, we can usually find more cost-effective ways of getting what the customer ultimately wants. And then that goes to an engineer to ensure that it's all engineered properly to get those things. So basically, the contractor provides like a preliminary design that then goes to an engineer or an architect, or both, depending on what it is, to make sure that it meets all of the requirements that it needs. So there was quite a bit of debate. The one member is really concerned that if we go this route, that it puts more liability on the village, and I really don't think that that's the case at all. What really has to be looked at is the final contract that is made, and making sure that all of the specifics of what the association wants for requirements for the pool are all detailed in that contract. So if all of that is done, which that's why we've hired a project manager, is to ensure that all of that's done, then there should not be additional costs involved. If they make sure that it's all in the design, in the plans for the project, and the contract. So anyway, that's kind of some conversation that happened there. The board decided to go ahead and table it until December to give the pool committee time. Right now they can only get one bid, so there's a couple different people who've come forward with wanting to bid it, but they want to collaborate, and so we'd really like to get 3 or so bids for this project. So they're going to allow them some more time to get some more bids so that we can have some competitive pricing. And I think that was about it on that. The next item was on Pickle Ball. So if you don't know, there's really fun pickleball that happens, I believe, on Wednesday nights and Friday mornings at the tennis courts. And a while back, the pickleball club had come to the association asking if they could paint permanent lines onto one of the tennis courts, so that, because previously they were putting down tape every single time that they played, having to purchase that tape amongst the different people who are playing, and take the time to apply and unapply the tape each time. So the board approved them to paint those permanent lines onto one of the courts. And so tonight they came and asked if they could, because there's been a lot of people playing. There's about 16 people right now. It's getting more popular, not just in Waikoloa, but across the country. It's becoming a really popular sport. And so they asked if they could paint lines on the other court as well. So there's a little bit of discussion about that. There are some people, tennis players, who are concerned about additional lines on the court being distracting for them to play. And then there's others that are of the opinion that we should be making our assets as multifunctional as possible, so that we're having them available to the most amount of people in the village to enjoy and play on. So I've played pickleball, and it's really fun, and I loved it. And I also played tennis on occasion. So I kind of like the idea of keeping one as tennis and one as pickleball, but I'm not like totally opposed to it. I'd really like to hear what people who are maybe more active at tennis playing than I am feel about it, and letting them weigh in, because I think it's important that we consider all the people who are currently using the courts. So they decided that they needed to do a little bit of research on how many people are actually playing on the tennis courts before they made a decision. So they're planning to make a decision in December about that. Next was about a solar farm. So there's this Hawaii Renewables LLC and Kohala Solar Energy LLC that are looking to build a solar farm and are proposing a license agreement with the village to use some of our land. Now, this is land that we cannot build on. It's land we can't really do very much on. So to me, this sounds like a really great way to make some revenue on land that we couldn't otherwise utilize for much. So their proposal is, they can't give the specifics because there's other companies that are also potentially, bidding to do this as well, or creating proposals. But basically, it would be to the tune of $75,000 plus a year to license the land, and that would be additional revenue that we would be making. So that sounds like a very promising way that we could be getting more revenue, but I think we need to also extend this invitation out to any other companies that might be interested in doing the same thing. So that is basically, I don't know if there was a motion on that, but it seemed like most of the board, all the board are pretty supportive of that. Of course, they'll be getting more details. This is kind of just more informational, I believe. Let's see. That might have been all. There is a pretty lengthy draw-up about that solar farm if anybody wants to read in the agenda. It's a supplement to that. Oh no, here's some other items that so I forgot the main event. The main event was that this is the meeting that the board approves the 2018 budget, next year's budget, and the budget was approved with that dues increase that I mentioned in the last update. So you will be seeing I believe it's a $15, let me see if I wrote it down somewhere. I believe it's a $15 increase in your dues. It's going to go up to $815. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty confident that that's what the dues are going to be starting next year. Additionally, they, in regards to the dues, they also passed a motion to create a $10 fee if you split your payment in 2 payments. So they're still going to allow that additional payment to split the dues in half for the year, but there will be a $10 charge if you don't pay them all in January. So I believe that the budget was approved unanimously. I'm not going to lie, I was a little bit disappointed even with my own husband voting for that, just because of that additional, not that there was already a dues increase that was scheduled, and that scheduled increase is to hedge inflation and to ensure that we have all the reserves that are needed for all of our expenditures that have been planned out for the next 10 or 15 years. So it was, unless we do something drastically operationally, it's the way that we're going to pay for things. So I still think we have to look at those things operationally to see what we can do and where we can make more revenue. But as of today, that's a necessary, in my opinion, a necessary increase. And but they also increased an additional $5. I wasn't in favor of raising any more than what we absolutely need to raise. So, but they believe that it was unanimously approved. And then the other item was the title change fee. So they did approve for an increase of a title change fee. So this is just kind of an extra way that we can make a little bit of revenue that doesn't affect members. So this comes into play when somebody is purchasing a home in Waikoloa. So when they go through escrow, association charges a fee to get the title changed. So that's going to go up $100 from $250 to $350 for that fee. So that shouldn't affect any of us, but will provide a little bit of extra revenue for our community, which we are in need of some avenues to get some revenue. It's not much, but it's something. Then they passed a motion for the auditors, which we have an audit done each year. And they also nominated a chair and for the communications committee. So the communications committee, it sounds like there was maybe some miscommunication, but the board was concerned that we really need a committee that's focused on making sure that there are avenues of communication to and from members, so that we can get the most information from members and their opinions and what they want, as well as get correct information out to members about what's happening and what's going on. So the communications committee up to this point has been largely focused on events, which have been fabulous, and I think that the whole board is in agreement that they want to have those people continue to do the great work that they've been doing. But the name of the committee was a little bit confusing, and so they wanted to create another committee, maybe call it like the Aloha Committee or an events committee or something like that, and have them be that, and then have a communications committee that focuses on providing communication between members and the board and staff. So it wasn't totally clear, but it sounds like the previous members of the communication committee maybe didn't get the whole information, and it sounds like they might have felt a little bit slighted and they all resigned, which is super unfortunate because they've done such a great job. So we're hoping that that will get figured out. There's been discussion about having those people continue on the communications committee and just have a focus on events. Anyway, so they appointed Pauline Johnston as the new chair of the communications committee, and they also she nominated me as a member for that committee. So I'll be serving on the communications committee. So I definitely would love to hear any input. Mostly I would like to be focusing on getting information to people the way that they want information. And so I'd like to start finding out from people what ways that they want communication. So we have been talking a lot about making an official Facebook page, and so we should be seeing that in the future, which will be really great. So any ideas are most welcome. We're also looking for some people who are really great at marketing, communications, or great on social media, so that we can or even just it would be nice to have committee members who are active members in different churches or Rotary, Lions Club, those kinds of things, so that we have some connection to some of these large groups that we can get information out to. So if you are one of those people that either has some experience with marketing, communication, social media, or is a prominent member of a big group in Waikoloa, please reach out to me or Pauline so we can find out if this might be a good place for you to be a volunteer. So we are definitely in need of those. The last thing on the agenda was for a truck that was needed to replace something else. I honestly wasn't, I was talking to a member about something during this time, and I did not hear the whole thing about this, but it was to replace a different vehicle, and sounds like they have some budgeted money for it. So anyway, it looks like it passed, and they are purchasing that. After that, they always open it up to owners. There was one owner who was particularly concerned that there were several people who were walking their dogs, are allowing their dogs to poop and pee on their yard. He's even approached some of them, and some have not been very nice about that. So just a good reminder that we need to be neighborly. If you have a dog, please make sure that you are picking up after it when you're taking it on walks, and let's also just remember to be neighborly, because that's what being in a great community is all about. So that was it for today. Love to hear any of your comments.